Alright, so hopefully the audio is okay, but I wanted to give a rundown. I've had 2 seasons now in a 2023 Rebel XL with a 60 horse. I got it in the tiller, and this is my 3rd Rebel. So I've owned one from the 90s, that's not even close to the same boat. I had a 2014, and I sold that. I got this one. This is 2023. Both in 60 horse. I can tell you the greatest thing about the tiller is the space you open up in a small boat like this. And I used to, with the console, where I'm sitting right now, my knee right here would be hitting console. And so when I was rebuying this boat, I already kind of learned what I liked and what I didn't like. And so I decided to go with a tiller steer. Grew up with a tiller, love a tiller. I will say last year we were at Lake Vermilion, and where the cabin stayed versus like the main part of the lake. Let me tilt this down a little bit. Where we stayed and where the main part of the lake you were going to go, in this boat was about a 20-minute ride. I will say I was missing that steering wheel after about 20-25 minutes of motor, and that was just to get to the opening. If you were going to go past the opening and keep going, it could be a 40-minute boat ride with a tiller. I will say the steering wheel would have been nice in that circumstance. But I wanted to give a rundown of this. I spent just about every weekend in this boat, many days a year as I can, many trips as I can. And I've seen these other reviews where they walk you around the boat and they open the cabinets up and look. But I wanted to actually go over what I like about it, what I wish I did different, wish Lund did different. And the one thing a lot of advertisements will tell you, and I don't exactly understand why they are doing it, but they always call it, this is a great multi-species boat, Well, in any boat I can catch lots of species, but I will say when it comes to a multi-species boat, that this thing is excellent at going to so many different things and being so many different types of boats. So it's a small boat, which what's great about a small boat is you could pull it with a small car. So you buy a big boat, you may have to get a bigger truck. And if you guys have not been living under a rock, you know what trucks have been costing since COVID. So the greatest thing about this is you can tow this with something small. I have a Tacoma, which is plenty of truck for towing this. And going down the road, this thing weighs, with all my stuff in it, 1,800 to 2,000 pounds, give or take, with everything in there. I'm also not a pack rat. I kind of take what I need, take out what I don't. But I can tell you with that 60 horse tiller, with just me in here, I've hit 35 miles an hour before. I've had my brother and my dad both in here, and I still maintain 32 miles an hour with this boat. It doesn't come up on plane as quick with that, but yeah, going full bore across the lake, I can still get up to 32, 33 miles an hour with an extra 400 pounds of guys in the boat. That 60 horse with that 4-bladed prop they put on her now really, really helps with that. These new fuel injector engines are just fantastic. So the one thing I will say, that they're always trying to push you into the next model. So Rebel used to be, back in 14 when I bought that first one, going into 23, I didn't realize they changed all this. But in 2014, you could buy a 1750. I want to say there was, even before that, was an 1825 or something Rebel. And there was a huge line of boats for Rebels. Now they just offer the 1650. And the next if you ask me, the next step up from a Rebel, it would either be an Impact or a Pro Guide. The one thing that's really nice about the 1650 size is I'm always fishing. You can see I'm fishing by myself. And I fish by myself most of the time. And what's nice about this is a very manageable boat. When you're constantly launching and bringing up, it's a very manageable boat. It's lightweight in the water. Once again, you just don't need a big truck. It's not a big heavy thing to winch up. No, you kind of slide it across on the trailer and click it up. You start getting into 1825s, it gets to be a little more tricky. Bigger movements and heavier. And so but if you're gonna be fishing by yourself or with little kids, like I have one little baby now and I got one on the way. So when these guys are little guys, this is gonna be a great boat for when they're sitting in the truck waiting for dad to get the boat in the water. It's not gonna be hard on me. But a couple of things I wanna say I wish Lund could have done different was the console back by the motor. And you look at the Pro Guide, that's the way a console should look. And this one's fine. This one's fine. It's just a hair small. So I wish they could have done it just a little bit different, made it a little more electronic friendly. I added that Garmin, that 9-inch Garmin this year. And when it comes to the casting deck, I think they could have came out another 6 or 8 inches with the casting deck. Maybe even a little further, move the seats back a little further. But I think the casting deck, it works for one guy. It's just fine for one guy. But I think it should be just a little bit bigger than it is. Rod storage in the tiller steer, I cannot complain about. Rod storage is just fantastic. I got 2 rod lockers. I got my musky stuff on this side, all my spinning gear on that side. And I could probably put, I'd say at least 10 rods in here. Well organized, I'm gonna say 12 to 15 rods organized. So I have about 10 rods in here now. The only thing with those, which is true for a lot of rod lockers, it's nothing, unique to Lund, is they don't even advertise them going up to 8 feet. This left one I can fit an 8-foot rod in. They don't advertise that though. I forget what it said, 7 something. Right side, definitely not putting an 8-foot rod in. So if modern musky rods, 20 years ago, we would have laughed at a 9-foot rod. We would have thought, nah, who needs a rod that big? But here we are. We've got 9-foot rods. Luckily, I have that Okuma that folds down. So it folds down like 7.2 or 7.4 or something. So it fits right in there. But there's a lot of fixed 8-piece musky rods. Definitely, I'm a fly fisherman, so you could just forget that, unless you're breaking it apart. Fly rods aren't going in the rod locker, which it is what it is. Most of them don't. But it would have been nice if Lund came out with this, if they extended the deck out a little bit and made that for rods. But they're trying to push you into the next one, which in my opinion would be the Pro Guide. If you're a tiller steer guy, the next one's a Pro Guide. And you look at the price difference, like this, when I bought this, was in the 20s. Pro Guide, you're really not getting the one you want before like 40 grand. So it's not like you could just go a hair more. It's not like, oh, well, instead of spending 27 grand, I'll spend 31,000 and get everything I want. It doesn't work like that. That 60 horse, I'm gonna tell you right now, is probably the most gas-friendly motor I've ever run. I filled that up early in the season, and I went on one run, another family trip, and a bunch of local days, and it didn't even burn a half a tank of gas. I bet you in a typical season for me, which is almost every weekend, the maximum amount of gas I'm gonna put in that is about 20 gallons for the year. And granted, if you do a lot of Northwoods trips where you're motoring, like it's 20, 30 minutes one way, you're gonna go through a lot more than that. But on my basic running around, Saturday morning fishing, no, it's not even, you're gonna save so much gas. And it's just a very efficient little motor. Very efficient little motor. I'm hoping to have B-roll of all this stuff. The one thing I want to talk about that came with this boat specifically, up there, I'm running it now, is I have the Minn Kota, what do they call that thing? Power drive. I knew that, the power drive. And when the motor's in the water, it's an excellent little motor. It really, really is. It's so efficient. I mean, I can run days on, or not days, but the day on one charge. And it's so powerful. It's just a 12-volt system on this boat. I don't need a 24-volt. And 12-volt system on this. And I never even bring it up to full power unless I'm really trying to move across the lake to a different spot. But keeping up with the wind, it's never been full. This thing, you could count the revolutions on that prop and it still moves the boat. And I'm hoping the wind's not too bad right now with this microphone stuff. But yeah, so with the Pro Guide, or the power drive, very good motor for this boat. But I think the mounting is terrible. I think the deployment and bringing it up is terrible. For instance, I know my wife couldn't deploy and bring that motor up, not without a lot of practice. So I wish they could have done the mounting a little different. The nice thing about that mount is it's very low profile. It doesn't take up a lot of room up there. And so that's nice. The other thing about the power drive that's very popular on these boats that I don't like is I've seen some hacks. Nothing, it's just a bad engineering design of how to run a transducer on the bottom of that motor. And so some people add a little loop here and they do a little thing there to keep the wire out of the way. But just all in all, it's just not a fantastic design. I would have liked to have seen something in the post. something in the post, something, you know, something, because you have to slide through the bracket, so that's the trick. So I would have liked to have seen something a little bit engineered a little bit differently. Nice thing about that motor too is I have this little remote. This is cheap to add to one of these. You could buy one of these and then add this cheap. I forget what I spent, maybe $100. But let's say you don't want this thing. The nice thing is with a tiller steer, I fish from the back of the boat now. Before, I always fish from the front. Always, always, always. But I get a tiller and I find myself, I'm recording this off the front of the boat now. So, but the nice thing is they give you the electronic foot pedal with this. And the wire is so long that comes with that. I can be standing on that back deck with my foot pedal, which I usually use on very windy days. When it's white capping and I gotta keep control, usually I'm not doing this as I'm cranking and trying to maintain control of the boat. So I'll run that all the way along the side and then I'll actually have the foot pedal in the back. As for storage, the deck standard issue, these two flaps that open up, they're not very waterproof. A couple of times this boat sat at a dock when it rained outside and you got a puddle of water on the bottom. It would have been nicer if there was if it just let a little less water in. I'm not saying it's got to be watertight, but just a little less water in there would have been fantastic. The live well's nice and big. The live well's we've had that loaded with fish and it's nice and big. Holds lots and lots of fish, more than you feel like filleting in one sitting. This front compartment has the one battery for the trolling motor. The other one's back here. The one gripe I do have, and I think it would come on a Pro Guide if you upped your package, you know, and all that, is I think if you order a tiller steer, I think the captain's chair should have armrest. I think you should be able to sit there with an armrest and one hand on the tiller, one arm on the armrest. I think this should be complimentary by Lund. They didn't do it. Seats are comfortable, they're great, but you don't know what to do with this other arm when you're motoring after 22 minutes of motoring. You're kind of, you know, putting it wherever. And I think a nice armrest would have been appropriate for sure on a tiller steer model. I get it on the ones that aren't tiller steer, but on tiller, I think you should have armrests. All in all, I think this is an absolutely fantastic boat. Little on the pricey side. Wish I went with the used route, but good luck finding tillers and Rebels on the used market for something you want. If I had to do all over again, if I had to reset and buy a boat again, I probably would be seeing if I can get the Pro Guide. And I would get the 1875 Pro Guide with the 90 horse tiller, and I probably would be seeing, but we're talking, instead of being in the 20s for the way I'd want it, we're talking in the 40s. So it's definitely, boats have gotten out of hand for pricing, and I think people just got used to payments. So they look at a manageable payment. I have a payment on the boat, but I'm paying it off as quick as I can because I don't want a payment. I just didn't want to, you know, fork over all that money at once. So, but I think people are just okay with a 15-year payment on a very expensive boat. Remember, guys, you got to pay that payment in January, February. You know, you're paying for all that. It's not just when you're using it. But the Pro Guide, if I had to do all over again money-wise, and if money wasn't that big of a deal, or if I had a little more wiggle room, I probably would have went with the Pro Guide. But I'm not disappointed with this boat at all. The only thing with the Pro Guide that would be nicer is when you have multiple people in here, is when you're fishing multiple people. But you know, when you fish 80-90% of your time by yourself, a boat this size is just fine. Me and Pat even had this. I was trying to make a video out of it. We actually had this on Lake Michigan trolling for salmon. We didn't get any. We were new to it. We wanted to see how dipsy divers work and learn all that stuff. So we were out there just kind of learning the equipment without high expectations of fish. We had rolling 3-foot waves that day. Granted, I wasn't going to go much faster than an idle, but this thing handled it. It did it just fine. And you'd have to get a really big boat to handle it that much better than this boat did. So I can tell you this handles bigger water pretty well for being a small boat. The other thing that is just fantastic about these boats, it's just, and you get it with any model now, it's just a standard thing, is the Sport Track. So I use, what is it called? Railblaza off of Amazon. You guys can get them on Amazon. Railblaza rod holders that just fit right in there. And we even had 9-foot trolling rods with the dipsy divers, biggest dipsy diver on there, dragging spoons. And we weren't sure. We went out there to see if the rod holders could handle it. And they did. They did. We put it, Pat was holding that rod. He's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm like, well, I'll just try it. I have leashes on them. If it breaks off, we'll at least get the rod back. He put it in there. We ended up trolling probably 6 or 7 miles that day in 3-foot waves, dragging dipsy divers in 40 to 60 feet of water. And so with that sport track, before sport track, there's always a clamp on, screw on. You don't have to commit any permanent holes with this sport track system on the inside and the outside. The outside's more for the bow cover. And yeah, Lund could do a much better job with the cover they give you. When they tell you the travel cover comes with it, it's a very pain in the butt cover to use. So it does fit nice though. The one thing that I wish it did is cover the motor, but they want to sell you a motor cover too, so those are very expensive. And so they want to sell you that as well. It's kind of keeping me moving around here with the breeze. And so I wish the cover did that. The one thing, my 2014, the dealer that spec'd that boat out and ordered it as a package, he did a very nice job at the trailer. So he's big on his Trailmaster trailers. This one has a Shorelander. And I'm telling you, the Shorelander is about half the trailer that a Trailmaster is. So if you guys did have to order a new boat, or if you're looking for a used one, a major plus is a Trailmaster. They're just built better, they're nicer looking, less rattly. And so I have a Shorelander now, and I would get rid of that for a Trailmaster right now if I could. So when you're looking at it, everyone looks at the boat, they don't really think about how the boat's gonna spend most of its life on a trailer, at least mine do. And you're gonna be dragging this thing hundreds of miles all the time, so you do have to look at the trailer. And I would highly recommend a Trailmaster over a Shorelander any day of the week. Any day of the week, definitely a Trailmaster. A lot of people are like, it's wheels bolted to a frame, what's the big deal? It's a difference. Trailmaster is better. The one thing that's a plus that Pat didn't get with his boat, and this is starting to get nitpicky, is these fold down cleats on the side of the boat. Pat's the one that just sticks up. I have the fold down ones, and they're great for stowing, and they keep, especially when you're fly fishing, because if you're fly fishing with a cleat that stands up all the time, you're going to keep every cast you're going to loop that thing around there. And so the fold down cleats are real nice. That was a nice finish. All in all, I would tell you that my 2014 Lund was a much nicer boat than my 2023. And they're very close, very close. I just think that 2014 was a little more thought out. I think the console was real nice on those. I missed the fact that when I went to go buy this boat, I was still thinking Rebel had the 17s and the 18s, and they didn't. They just had the 1650. And so I was a little disappointed. That's kind of how I also ended up with a 1650, was because they cut the Rebel line down. But all in all, if I had to go back in time, money wasn't as big of an issue, I would get a Pro Guide for sure. But my Lund Rebel is just fine. My sons are gonna grow up in this boat. I use it all the time. And the 60 horse, gas is not a thought. You don't have to worry about what gas is gonna cost you for the weekend, because chances are you would have to run this thing for 12 hours a day at full throttle to burn a tank of gas. And that would be an interesting experiment. How many hours on a tank of gas? That would be interesting. Because I have a lot of hours without going through a tank of gas. And so this is a very, very budget friendly, you can do it by yourself, very easy maneuverable boat. There's just little things, I can't complain, doesn't mean I won't, that kind of thing. And I guess if I could pick one thing for Lund to fix on this boat that really wouldn't cost them a dime to fix, would it be armrests on that chair. That would be a major, major difference. And yeah, that's it. Remember, check out the podcast on Thursdays. Midwest Frontier. Should be available anywhere you can look for a podcast. And yeah, email us at themidwestfrontier@gmail.com. And thanks for listening. Well, thanks for watching. I'm used to saying thanks for listening for the podcast, but thanks for watching this.